You know, I often struggle with describing the current attitude in terms of criminal justice in this country because, on the one hand, I understand that individual people and even some people in the media and even some people in the government wanted some kind of reform for certain instances where people would be wildly punished disproportionate to their actions. However, I can't ignore the fact that there are bad actors who seem to not only excuse criminality, but also are pro-criminal. On top of that, these bad actors are not restricted to the crevices of the online left. These people are actually in power as of right now, and they're influencing policy, and some of them have actually captured district attorney positions, like in Manhattan, where Alvin Bragg is the district attorney. Now, we've gone over how Alvin Bragg is dropping charges or reducing charges in about 60% of the cases that he's dealing with. If you commit a serious felony, guess what? It's being kicked down to a misdemeanor, and he doesn't want to put anybody in prison unless they commit only a certain degree of felonies. So what we're watching here is a guy who is obviously leading to a crime spike. However, he's not somebody who's just, I want to be soft on everyone. He's somebody who wants to enforce a specific pro-criminal ideology, because today we're going to talk about a story where a CVS worker was attacked by a retail thief. That attack ended up leading to him defending himself, and now this CVS worker is being charged with murder. This seems eerily similar to the incidents that we've heard about, including the Jordan Neely Daniel Penny incident and the Jose Alba incident, which was also in Manhattan. Now, we're going to get into this. I'm going to talk about the man at the center of this, but before we get into that, this video is sponsored, so let me toss it to the sponsor, and you're going to want to come back over here when we discuss this on the other side. The surging national debt is bullish for the gold market. The recent debt ceiling drama ended with nominal cuts to the federal budget, along with an unlimited credit card for the feds to spend all of your money, spend away your future for years to come. This is why a Bank of America senior analyst said that the current boom that we're seeing is going to be followed by a dramatic drop in stock prices. Are you prepared? Is your retirement prepared for the impending doom? One of the things that you can do to prepare for this is actually move some of your money into precious metals. And with National Gold Group, you can be connected with a world-class customer service to walk you through the process. If you mention my channel's name, you will have the fees waived when you decide to invest with National Gold Group, and you can call them at 866-826-2603 in order to be walked through your options. They have best-in-class customer service, great representatives that are American-based. So once again, call them up at 866-826-2603, and remember, there's always a risk for investing, and past performance is not necessarily a guarantee of future results. So first things first, I gotta put this out there up front so we can get the best possible response. Scotty Enoe, the subject of today's video, is up against it. I recently looked at his Give Send Go, which will be linked in the description of this video, and it's at $225. $225 for a clear and obvious case of self-defense where he was attacked, and he's being charged with the full weight of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office by the ideologically motivated Alvin Bragg.
A fatal stabbing at CVS in Midtown is now the center of a shoplifting incident turned deadly. The NYPD was called to the store along Broadway and 49th Street on Thursday night for a report of a robbery. When officers arrived, they found a man with a stab wound to his torso. Sources believe that some kind of altercation occurred between Scotty Enoe, a CVS employee, and the 50-year-old alleged shoplifter. Enoe is accused of pulling out a knife and fatally stabbing the 50-year-old, whose identity has yet to be released.
So at the time of this segment, 46-year-old Scotty Enoe had already been arrested and charged with murder in relation to this incident, but the person that he got into the altercation with, his name was not released. However, we actually have an article from the New York Post that goes into the history and the name of the person who was killed, and it turns out it's a 50-year-old homeless man called Charles Brito. Now, according to the Enoe camp, as delivered by his mother to the New York Post, the confrontation went down something like this. At 12:30 at midnight at this CVS in Midtown Manhattan, Brito, who has a long history of thefts and other crimes, unsurprisingly was one of these guys who should have never been on the streets in the first place, decided that he wanted to steal Gatorade and coffee creamer of all things. Why a homeless man specifically wants coffee creamer, I'll never understand, but this is what he tried to steal. At this same time, the 46-year-old Enoe spotted him. He tried to intercede in order to prevent this merchandise from being stolen. And by the way, this is something that you should do. We've talked about over and over again how thievery in New York City is off the charts. I recently did a video about how it's up 77% since the Black Lives Matter riots, 44% from 2021 to 2022, just that year alone. And this has led to abandoned retail space and all kinds of problems for the community and all kinds of job losses for people like Enoe. So what he's actually seeing is a man steal his potential livelihood because, as we all know, CVS's in major metropolitan areas are being closed over and over and over again due to the fact that the thieves are allowed to run wild. Now, after Enoe confronts this man, what does he do? He punches him square in the face and begins attacking him for the merchandise. So what we have right here is a homeless man escalating to violence immediately based on the fact that he did not value the life of Enoe more than the merchandise that he had in his hand. Now, at this point in time, this was escalated from a simple shoplifting, a simple petty theft, to a robbery because physical force was being used to obtain the items. Now, for some reason, people are under the belief that when you commit a crime, when you sucker punch somebody, that all of a sudden you are entitled to some kind of karate battle, but Enoe was not having it. Seeing the potential threat, by the way, this is a homeless guy, he could have easily had a weapon on him. You don't have to wait for the weapon to be drawn before you react to that potential. It was a legitimate threat. He draws a knife, and during the confrontation, the homeless person, Brito, ends up being stabbed, and he ultimately ends up dying by the time that the police arrive. Now, Enoe of Brooklyn was taken into custody at the scene. He was then escorted to Mount Sinai West with contusions to the face, a source said. He was later taken to the precinct and then charged with murder and possession of a weapon. Now, if you'll remember my appearance on the Culture War, we were told by Emma Vigeland that the shoplifters, they're just desperate Aladdins. They're the most desperate people, and you really can't do anything. Also ignore the unprecedented numbers of increase in retail theft because honestly, those people are just in desperate straits, and what are they gonna do? He had to steal that coffee creamer, he needed it to feed starving children, and he had to attack the employee that was working at CVS because he dared try to stop him from accomplishing his god-tier Aladdin-like duty to steal from stores for whatever he wants for whatever reason.
And the reason it worked is because the philosophy behind mass incarceration is pretty simple. What you're trying to do is incapacitate criminals because the same criminals are often reoffending. You brought up shoplifting earlier. You can actually pull up an article to find out that the same 300 people in New York City represent a third of the shoplifting arrests total for a single year.
Probably because
This
they're
is because they're
incredibly
repeat
impoverished and they need to find a way to actually sustain their livelihoods in this country.
But the thing is, this is actually the story of a man in desperation. This is actually the story of somebody who is under the gun and actually produces. This is what good, kind, honorable people do when put in these circumstances. And of course, I'm talking about Enoe, because Enoe is actually somebody who suffers from sickle cell anemia and requires daily meds in order to not live in constant pain. Enoe, who immigrated to the United States at the age of 5 from Grenada, who according to family always has had multiple different jobs, including some additional side hustles, was working at CVS, one of 2 jobs that he had at the time, in order to cover that medication. Remember this story when people tell you that the thieves are just in desperate straits, they just needed it to get by, they're just trying to make ends meet, that the people that they encounter, the people who work at these stores, the people who are at risk of losing their jobs, the people who get attacked by these criminals with their thuggish tactics as they're trying to steal not just from him, not just from CVS, but from the community, they're attacking those in desperate straits. Enoe was the guy that supposedly the left wing used to be interested in wanting to help, yet he's being hung out to dry, being charged with murder because he was put into a situation by a system that absolutely failed him. And we're going to get to that system failure right about now. The homeless man who was pronounced dead at Bellevue Hospital had more than a dozen previous shopping arrests to his name and was known to target drugstores in Upper Manhattan, according to sources. Maybe Scotty was the unlucky one, the mom said when told of the homeless man's priors. "I'm praying for him and that everything will be okay," she continued. "They should have put this guy away somewhere a long time ago. Just keep him off out of the street. Look, I couldn't agree more. Her son was definitely the unlucky one. They had over a dozen chances to get this individual off the street. If he had mental illness or anything like that, they had over a dozen chances to get him into treatment, yet they did not. They kept releasing him over and over again. They said shoplifting was no big deal. It's not like these people are dangerous anyway. And what did we end up with? We end up with a guy who's struggling to pay for his medication, getting into a fatal encounter with this individual. If you're one of those people who are like, save the homeless, save these poor Aladdins, well, that poor Aladdin just ended up dead. Who won out of these circumstances? Who did the soft on crime policies actually benefit? Absolutely nobody, except for you left-wing progressives who would rather feel good than actually do good. This man should not have his life ripped apart. This man should not be ripped away from his family. This man should not have ended up in a jail cell without his medication because he was arrested on the spot. The criminal should have been held. I said it before and I'll say it again. If you're a repeat offender consistently, this was over a dozen times, then a judge should be able to assert judgment and hold you pre-trial. You need to have strong deterrence for this criminality, and these retail thieves are one person trying to intervene away from becoming violent. They're one chance from things turning awry, and in this incident, we have this guy ending up dead, and now 2 lives are going to be completely ruined. One has been ended over these circumstances. We have to absolutely fight back. Again, his Give Send Go is at $225. Look, I understand a lot of you are struggling out there. I'm not asking for those of you who can't afford it to give, but if you can afford it and you care about the principle of self-defense, if you can afford it and you care about everyday Americans who come to this country, who put in the work, who do more than enough, all to pay for their own prescription drug medication just so they can live a life that is relatively pain-free, being put in these situations by left-wing policies and left-wing politicians, then give what you can. They're only asking for $20,000. To me, that is outrageously low considering that they're going to have to fight off murder charges, but maybe it will work out well for him in the future. Bragg may be an ideologically motivated thug, but guess what? He is also somebody who is deathly afraid of pushback. He's definitely afraid of people noticing what he's doing. That's why he dropped the charges in the Jose Alba case. Yet another person who, by the way, should have never been out on the streets in the first place, attacks Jose Alba, and Bragg charges him with murder because how dare you defend yourself in the city of New York. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute madness that is New York City. Till next time.